Hello, welcome to Dining Table Discworld. I'm Dave.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is the introduction.
So I guess we better introduce ourselves.
I thought we just did. I'm Dave, you're Kathy.
That's true, maybe a little bit more.
Okay. We are a married couple who live in the West Midlands. We love reading, we love books, We're both
fairly geeky.
We have both worked for library services at one point in that time. Yes, we are. We enjoy the general geekery of science fiction and fantasy fandom, and we also spend a lot of time talking about various things, much to the annoyance of the little one in the house. We have a little one in the house. You know, we thought we would invite everyone to join us and hear what we talk about around our dining table.
We don't talk about stuff as much as we used to, but that's because life is busy and, I guess being parents does make it more difficult.
Yes, and then if anything, the dining table is the easiest place because this is where we're sitting down, eating together, and it's a nice time to sit and have a chat about something.
So, I suppose we need to go through what it is that we're doing, just quickly.
Right, so yes, what we are doing, we are going to read the entirety of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series in publication order and talk about each book roughly once a month.
And we're going to do it at our dining table.
At our dining table. That's the whole...
We're definitely going to do the main novels. I think we'll see about other stuff. I feel like we should include the Tiffany Aching books and The Amazing Morris.
Well, we have to read because the last book is one of those.
That's the one I've not read.
I know. So the point is, if we're going to do so this is another one of the reasons we're doing this is because Kathy has not yet read the Shepherd's Crown. I have.
So I'm just going to have a load of podcasts, 40-something podcasts, run up to actually reading it.
So
that's putting it in the future, but sort of at a set time.
Yes, it's not a bad thing to go over, and we'll most likely come to this. We check the notes on what we're talking about. So that is what we're doing, and yes, whether we go through the other stuff, my brain has lost it. The cookbooks, the
Science of the Discworld, which I've only partly read, and then I suppose there's the sort of other. The films and the TV movies and TV shows.
I see Patreon content.
Feels a bit early for that.
And there's nothing wrong with being, planning ahead.
Sure.
I live streams of me playing the computer games.
Okay.
We can go. There's the many rabbit holes we can go down.
This seems more ambitious than I was planning. Also, we're already planning ahead something that I think takes about 3.5 years.
As I say, no harm in having things just in our back pocket.
Sure. So I think it's worth perhaps talking about some of our history at Discworld.
Yeah. You can go first on this one. I keep going.
Okay, that's fine. So, if I look around our living room, I can see about 3 Discworld things. There's a duplicate of Grey 2. And also, there's the fact that we had 2 Discworld things in our wedding cake toppers.
We did, yes. That was the librarian and the luggage.
In our hallway, there is a picture of a swamp dragon that I coloured in from the Discworld colouring book.
It's a very nice swamp dragon.
Thank you.
My Death on Binky, for which I was given for my 18th birthday, is on the mantelpiece. There is various models I have painted of various characters, mostly for the wedding cake, but
Well, Christmas you get more of them out, don't you?
Yes, I do have a Death as Hogfather with what's his face, who kept naming wrong in the episode. No one's ever
Albert.
Albert, yes. The
I had to think about it.
Yeah. It's not Alfred.
That's Batman's butler.
That's Batman's butler.
It's a butler called Al something.
This is a deep cut reference no one's ever going to get because that recording won't see the light of day. So I have a few more for Christmas. So there is we thoroughly enjoy it. And between us we had half the series duplicated.
At least that, because I bought a lot before we met and before we moved in together.
So, and I had all of them up to that point. So, a lot of those are currently at my place of work, being lovingly borrowed by other people.
So do you want to talk about how you first got into Discworld?
My mother. But that was more because she's never read any, but she's worked for libraries. So I had read the Bromeliad trilogy and enjoyed it. Had I read Johnny... Only You Can Save Mankind at that point? I can't remember. But anyway, so I'm pretty certain... through a process of elimination and looking at times of release dates, I must have been given Reaper Man. It was a 50-50 chance whether it's that or Maud, because it was definitely one of the Death books, but I'm pretty certain it was Reaper Man. And then I read that one, and then went back through the start, and yes, I've read them all. But yes, my mother kind of, here, you need stuff to read, because I'm a voracious reader, needed more books to read. So
yeah, but that's very relatable. Obviously, that was also how I was as a child.
Yeah. I just relied on her to bring me my books home because, well, she was working in the library.
Well, that's very lucky. Some of us didn't have parents who worked in a library and just brought book homes all the time.
I mean, it's kind of like little one does these days.
That's true, yes. My mum would quite often order books for me from her friend who owned a bookshop. So that was kind of useful. Also, a lot of adults would give us all book vouchers, but my siblings weren't as into reading, so quite often I think my mum would swap theirs for money, and then the book vouchers could be used for me. Although that's probably a bit earlier than when I was reading Discworld. So how old about were you, do you think?
That would have been 12-ish.
Okay.
13. Yeah, not that.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, I was reading...
I was going to say, if you want me to look up when Reaper Man was published...
Yeah, I was going to say that might be the
if that's what you think.
I think it was about then, but...
So I was a little older. I might have been 14. I feel like it was 15. I definitely have strong memories of reading a lot of Discworld during my GCSEs, but I might have started a little bit sooner. I remember seeing the books, both in the school library and in the bookshop back in Worcester that I used to go to, and not being sure about them and sort of looking at the backs of them and not being sure because of the covers a bit, maybe, or seeming like something that I almost shouldn't be into, which is probably a bit odd, but I mean, I don't think teenage girls are particularly the target audience of those book covers.
I know, not on the early stuff, not so much.
So I'm pretty sure my first one was Equal Rights, which my memory of wasn't brilliant, as we shall discuss. But after that, I think I liked it enough to try other stuff. And then there were certain sub-series I really got into. And then, I just read a lot of them. I had like a shelf over my bed that I just put a load of Discworld novels on. Was it over my bed? I definitely had a shelf somewhere that I specifically put like load of Discworld novels on. And then when I was in sixth form, my dad was in hospital for a little bit. And the hospital was near the sixth form college, so I could visit him a bit, and he quite often wanted stuff to read. So I did give him various books I had, because he's the other big reader in the family. Sort of me and him were the ones who were always reading stuff. And he also likes sort of fantasy and sci-fi, amongst various things. So I did give him various Discworld ones to read. I can't remember how much he got into them, though. I think he liked it more than some of the other stuff I gave him. I mean, he's the same age as Sir Terry, but I think if anything, I kind of gave them to him rather than the other way around. I don't think he read through it. He's not the sort of person that kind of necessarily wants to, I think, read through the whole of something. Mm-hmm. He'll just kind of read what he fancies at the time, which is obviously fair enough. 91, so 11-ish. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you were a bit younger than me.
I mean, I was reading the Lord of the Rings at that point as well, so slightly different. Not by much, though. Not very far removed.
No. Well, see, again, Lord of the Rings is one of Dad's big ones. He got given a copy when he was 21 and just reread it like regularly, for decades and decades after. But then also, like, some members of his family kind of knew the Tolkiens a bit. So that's a whole separate thing.
That's just name dropping there.
Is there a particular thing that you are looking forward to with us doing this?
Actually reading some of the ones for a second time that I've only ever read once, which is actually quite a lot of the later stuff. I'd read the ones through the library as they're coming out from the library. It wasn't until I was older I was able to start buying them. So obviously I'd have read them once when they came into the library and read them again when I bought them. The later stuff, as I was buying as they came out, I just tend to read them once. Mm-hmm. There's not many of them later. I mean, Hogfather and Thief of Time I've read multiple times. But I mean, just kind of looking at the list, almost say, yeah, almost from Nightwatch onwards, I've only ever read them once.
Okay.
We Free Men I've read a couple more times, but yeah, Monstrous Regiment, Going Postal, Thud.
See, I was buying them pretty regularly, certainly for at least a couple of years at high school and then at sixth form, and then obviously at university. Well, at university, one thing I felt I should mention is that as well as going and joining the Sci-Fi Society, which I would then later come to run in my final year, I also in first year went and found DiscSoc and joined that. So I was, specifically that was the thing I was looking for, to chat to, people at university. I think I just wanted to talk to people about geeky stuff because I didn't get a lot of that at home and just had to go on like internet forums and things back in, the noughties.
So long ago.
Well, certainly in internet terms. Remember when Google used to work?
Remember when you had to use Alta Vista?
No, I don't remember that.
Remember when you wanted to connect to the internet, it went...
I do remember the dial-up noise. Also, I just had memorised the URL for like one of the forums went online. I just memorised the thing for it. It was on Runboard.
I could tell by the sounds that the modem was making whether it was successfully connecting or what lot likely to be the problem was when it wasn't successfully connecting.
Well, that's very fancy. Well done, you.
Anyway,
that brief blast from the past, which I mean, for some people, is clearly just incredibly retro, if anything. So I think my thing was I bought most of them, so I'd go for a while, and that'd be like that was a series of book I'd buy. But because there was just quite a few of them in, how old would I have been? It's kind of 2000-ish, 2001, I would have started buying them. So there were a lot of previous ones. Yeah. So I just bought them, and I kind of just bought them based on what I liked the sound of from the back, from the blurb at the back. So I sort of didn't buy them in any order initially, and just sort of bought them and read them. And so some I'd reread because they were in the house. And then, I know the Watch series and the Witches series are my favourite ones. And I know certainly when I started university, which was some years later, I think my favourite was either Feet of Clay or The Fifth Elephant. But then I think I've come to appreciate some of the Witch ones a bit more. But then some I'd buy and I'd read it once, and I'm like, oh, and I just wouldn't go back to it. So Moving Pictures, Pyramid, Small Gods, all of those.
I think it's going to be good to get a different, because both of us have slightly different ways of approaching the books.
Yeah. Read them at different times.
Yeah. Small Gods was one I possibly didn't get on with as much, but your background in ancient history might give us some interesting.
Well, this is the thing, because you think I would have been in Small Gods, because obviously I was very, very into like mythology and stuff, and then I went and did an ancient history degree because I guess that's what one does. That's what kind of geeky teenager I was. But for some reason, I don't think I quite got Small Gods as much, which I expect I would do more now, and Pyramids as well, because obviously, like I've done an ancient history degree since reading both of those books.
Pyramids would be an interesting one, because I think that was one of my favourites.
I can't remember the plot of it at all.
No, and there
are pyramids, and it's presumably ancient Egypt.
We were talking about this the other day, just as we do, because and I don't think either of us could come up with actually what the plot. I think there's an evil. There you go. Evil vizier somewhere in amongst there, and
Tepet becomes the king.
He becomes pharaoh while in Ankh-Morpork.
Yes,
and has to go back, and hilarity ensues.
Presumably,
I think there's something involving pyramids and time.
Because I got Pyramids from the title, and then I didn't get the time thing though, so you probably remember that better than me.
Yeah. So,
but there was some I'd reread a lot. But there's stuff like I would have thought I'd got on better with The Amazing Morrison's Educated Rodents, because like Talking Rats.
Yeah.
That seems like right up my alley. But I didn't get on with it that much. But then again, it is a young adult one, and I was at that point probably a little bit older than the target audience. And didn't quite get into it, and it was. Was that around the time that YA was becoming a category?
A little bit.
So, whereas, again, since then, I've read more YA as, like, a category of book. So I feel like I'm a little bit more, familiar with that. But there's some I've read quite a lot. I think what happened with me was, though, because I'd read them because you'd get a copy, and then I'd just read from your mum.
Yes.
And then I'd read your copy. And then we hit Unseen Academicals. And I was not as bothered by that.
Which is fair enough. And to be honest, that one, I can easily see that one, the general premise. It's basically football.
And I'm not into sport or football.
But I think, again, I only read that one once. Because again, it wasn't... But I think that the other layers to it...
Yeah, well, having read it, because... Yeah, I mean, then again, like, I'm not into economics, but then again, I can only half remember making money. I'm not into the post office, but I read Going Postal. I think it got to a point where I was a bit like, I wasn't so bothered about having a pastiche of that. And also, look at when it was. Some of the Making Money I don't remember, but that was when I was like in my final year of uni, so I was probably a bit distracted. And then Unseen Academicals, yeah, I just kind of didn't bother with that one, and I just didn't read them for a while. And then, because I did read Snuff. No, I didn't. No, sorry, I read Thud. I didn't remember it very well. And then, but I think, again, stuff while I was doing my degree, and there was just lots of stuff then. And then after that, obviously I was working for libraries for a while, so you're just reading all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I didn't kind of go back to it, and then obviously, so Terry died, and then it wasn't until the last few years I was like, well, actually I should try reading the stuff that I not only didn't read, but also the bits I can't remember, so I went and looked for them in the house to find the copies. So I have now read everything except for The Shepherd's Crown, but I think quite a few people haven't read The Shepherd's Crown or haven't read to the very end of The Shepherd's Crown.
I think it's quite common.
Yeah, I can think of at least a couple of people who've done that. So I have read all of them now, but some of them were like just in the last few years, whereas others I've read tons of times, when I was younger. But I imagine there's an element of like, there'll be jokes I didn't get because I was 15. I
think also as well, there'll be stuff that we won't, because of the space between us reading the books. I mean, most of the time when I was reading them, there was a year between them. So I wasn't necessarily remembering. Whereas if we're going to be reading them over a lot shorter period than one a year, then we might actually there'll be things we'll pick up as we
Yeah. Well, there's lots of the in-joke stuff, like the whole Oblong and Eldritch thing. I just knew that was in there and I wasn't sure where it came from.
Yeah.
But then, as it's coming up, I read it in an early one. I'm like, oh, this is where it comes from and why. And sort of all the punal play on words.
Yes.
that there are. So I think that would be good to kind of go back to and remember what those are about, and probably new ones. Or, well, not new, but ones we had forgotten.
Yes.
Or some stuff perhaps hadn't understood.
So yes.
What's the first of the early ones you think you're looking forward to? Because like the first few aren't the best.
I think potentially Pyramids. I think just because I think that was one of my, ones I read a lot, linchpin ones early on.
But yeah, you can't remember the plot.
But I can't remember the plot. So
whereas I can remember all the Watchbook mysteries, other than Guards, because I started at Men at Arms. But I think I can remember roughly who the killer is for all of them.
That's fair enough. But I think it's just one thing you go back to, and we can any of the ones you've.
I think the first one I'm really looking forward to is Weird Sisters, because that's the one which feels like the proper solid foundation of the Witches one, although obviously equal rights does exist.
but will never be spoken of.
Well, it will be. It will be spoken of in like 3 episodes' time. Yes, because Weird Sisters, it's the Three Witches start. It's all very Shakespearean and plays and stuff, and as well as being the kind of teenager who's, reading a lot of Greek myth stuff and then chose classical civilizations at A-level because that was an option. I also was in a youth theatre and I did like plays quite a bit, and I liked drama, and also like Shakespeare's one of those things where if I read it or if I see it performed, I tend to at least have a reasonable idea what's happening, whereas I know that like not everyone does. And so I think a lot of stuff taking on that. Also, like I used to watch Shakespeare in Love all the time. It was just that whole early English theatre stuff was the thing I kind of had an interest in as well. So I used to have an interest in a lot of things. As one can when one is young and doesn't have to pay the bills or look after a kid. But maybe reading some stuff it's about things I used to be interested in when the world is your oyster, that might be quite interesting to get back to.
So, if you've enjoyed us rambling
I wish to hear more of
but
such.
but of us, I'm slightly more targeted rambling, where we will discuss for about 45 minutes to an hour each of the books, depending on
Depends how much you have to say about any of them.
yes. We'll go through a bit of a synopsis. We'll go back talk about what we've liked, what we disliked, some of the main themes. We'll
This sounds very organised.
Shh.
Don't make too many promises.
Yeah. I think this covers
Set expectations.
We'll talk about things that that might start in some of the early books and follow through. We may well refer back to things as we're going along. They're
I think we just see how we go.
yes, and we haven't at all completely and utterly already recorded at least 3 episodes yet. For now, we shall say
Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us again.
join us for our first episode round the dining table, which will be Colour of Magic.